X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to Battle of the Atom! This is your exclusive source for all things relating to taking three X-Men stories and listing them in order of best to worst. It's a very niche market. My name is Zach Jenkins, and with me as always is Adam Reck. Adam, how are you doing this fine evening?
I am good. I think we've cornered that market considering we created it.
I mean, look, I gave us very, very tight parameters to work in, but I think we're doing an excellent job in those parameters.
I hope so. I hope people think the same. We'll see. Everybody
Yeah,
seems to be so angry at us about Inferno, so we'll make up for it eventually.
we will. I mean, this has been an interesting podcast so far. I think we have, like, the X Factor, that little special something that a lot of people are missing.
Yeah, it'd be cool if there were multiple series that involved X Factors, and maybe we could talk about them.
All new ones, perhaps? Or some that investigate things? Or
Oh, my goodness.
we're talking about X Factor today, guys. This is an all X Factor episode. This is actually we're going to be looking at the first arc of three kind of different eras of X Factor, and I think it's going to be three good ones. This is all because Patreon supporter Charlie Davis wanted us to talk about Peter David's X Factor Investigations first arc, and we just decided to make a whole thing of it.
It's a great idea. I love it.
It is. That's why we had it, and that's why we're doing it. We're just patting ourselves on the back all day.
Can I use this as a segue? You know what's not a good idea? The original premise for X Factor.
Oh my gosh. We are starting this off. We're going to go chronologically on this episode. We're starting off with X Factor Volume 1, numbers 1 through 6, written by Bob Layton, and number 6 by Louise Simonson, with art on 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 by Jackson Geiss. 4 has art by Keith Pollard. This was a weird one. And this was a weird one for a lot of reasons, because you and me were even trying to figure out, how do we chunk this up? Do we just look at, the first issue of X Factor? Do we look at just the stuff with Apocalypse? Do we look at all this stuff? It's very weird. We decided on the first 6 issues.
I think it's a good, thing because we get the Apocalypse reveal, and even though it's Simonson taking over, this works as an introduction to what the series is supposed to be, and thank God that is not what the series is about.
I'm just going to say, of all the bad ideas, I'm going to accept that Jean Grey had to come back for marketing reasons. I get it. I'm a little mad about what it did to Cyclops, but end of the day, I get it. But the concept of, okay, here's the thing, guys. We're going to create this really big advertising campaign and talk about how terrible mutants are and how scary they are and how we have to try and find them. And then, in secret, we're going to pose as mutant terrorists and capture mutants to then train them. Like, it's so a bad idea, and no one said, wait a minute, Cameron Hodge. Are you sure you're not going to go evil and turn into a Spider-Man?
I'm so baffled that, okay, I agree with you 100%. Editorially, we're thinking, all right, we want to get the band back together, original X-Men, fine. If you absolutely have to do that retcon and then let John Byrne have his way with in the X Factor issue, cool. But there are so many ways, especially since this book is so soapy, to really make the evolution and the assembling of this team be something organic and interesting. And this is none of those things. It is the worst possible motivation to get these 5 characters together. And then when they do, everybody is just kind of like, like I said, it's a soap opera. So everybody's very dramatic and angsty about it.
Gosh.
And clearly there was an effort made that the team had to be assembled by the end of the first issue and already fighting villains and in costume. And it's like, why? Because this still could have been the soapy weird thing that it is, but I don't know.
It's
This is
like,
wacky.
it's just not very good is the problem. Like, first, that
Yeah.
plot's bad. Second, Cyclops is written horribly. So
Yeah.
much of this book is about, okay, let's retcon things back to the original X-Men and the way they originally were. Like, Beast loses his powers in the third issue, or not his powers, but loses his bestial form in the third issue.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're taking the X-Men and bringing them back to their most boring. What are you guys thinking? I don't understand the fetishization around the 05. Just as a concept. They aren't the most interesting five.
It's a very strange editorial edict to say that not only do the 5 characters have to be together, but all this stuff that happened to them, or all the stuff that happened, around them, or even what they look like, we strip it all down, and that doesn't really work. It doesn't really make any sense. And by page 16, we got Scott leaving Madeline Pryor out to dry. It's the worst. It makes no sense character-wise where we left these guys in Uncanny. So it's baffling.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're ripping pretty hard into the first issue because the first issue is oversized and bad.
Yeah. But also this book takes an extremely long time to get its footing. I mean, 6 issues is half a year for them to figure out, like, what is this team? What is even the premise of this book? Who are these villains and what is the mastermind behind them? Like, I still love that the original concept was that the owl was going to be in charge of these criminals that they're fighting over the first couple of issues. It's like, what?
Which frankly would it would in retrospect make it less weird when it's Apocalypse. Because Apocalypse shows up at the end of issue 5, and then you have to figure out, okay, wait, what was his plan? How does this tie into the Apocalypse that everyone knows and loves from, X-Men?
Well, and you could say about Apocalypse at just about every appearance. Like what's his deal? I don't know. What's his power set? Well,
Apocalypse is always a better idea than he is like an actual active participant. But he does look pretty neat.
Yeah. He's a good thing to be afraid of,
Yes. Well,
occasionally that pays off, but not very often, especially not here where he's just another supervillain that kind of pops up and we don't really, we don't know what he is so far.
He does get wacky, inflatable, flailing hammer arms, though.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, like when Simonson jumps on the book in 6, she tries to do she tries to push it in the right direction, and it starts to get there. It still takes a little bit. It really takes till about Mutant Massacre for the book to really try and know what it wants to be.
Yeah. And once it hits its stride, I love X Factor. Yeah. It's a great book. I really enjoy when both the Simonsons are working on it, and it's great. But this is not that period of X Factor, and it is I don't think it's very good.
I mean, let's talk about these issues because in very brief form, because they're a little bit one shots with an overarching story with the Alliance of Evil. We went through issue 1 well enough. It's a weird bad story that ends up they get Rusty Collins, who has never been interesting.
Poor Rusty.
No, you know what? Forget Rusty. He's the worst. Issue 2, they fight Tower, who is best known for being the only mutant the Executioner ever actually executed. Issue 3, they fight Artie Maddox's dad, and then
That's
Artie.
true. We get Artie out of this. That's kind of cool.
You get cool things out of it. You get Artie. Issue 4, they fight Frenzy, who ended up
also very cool.
Well, look, no, Frenzy in 2011 is very cool. Frenzy in 1986 is
yeah. There's seeds of things that are cool here.
Right. You fight the rest of the Alliance of Evil, who are somehow worse than Frenzy and Tower, and then you fight a weird version of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a good summary.
that's
And everybody
all it
walks
is.
around and everybody walks around either in their costumes or in their underwear and robes and yells at each other.
It's too soapy for the X-Men, and that shouldn't be a thing.
No,
Oh,
it's weird. It's weird.
this
All right.
this is a weird story. Though I am curious. Uh, do you want to move to ranking?
Yeah, I'm fine with that because I don't revisit this that
No.
often. Uh, I think the Epic Collection version of this first arc just came out, and I was like, maybe I'll wait for the next one.
Yeah.
I'm not super psyched to like rush out and buy another version of this.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to have it all in floppies, thanks to friend of the
Oh,
show,
cool.
Thomas Cummins, who
Oh, you-
sent a lot of them to me, which was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. So, X
Uh,
Factor number 1. Where do we want to put these comics?
uh,
Uh,
I mean, I'm looking kind of low here, man.
I mean, look,
Like-
we didn't say positive things about it.
No. Like I know your floor in a lot of cases is Summer Special, but like I want to go back and I want to look at Summer Special's art. I don't. I want to look at Heroes for Hope's art. Jackson Geis is a good artist, and I like a lot of the stuff that he does. But I just like I don't find a lot of the fun stuff here. So I'm looking down at that part of the list.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like,
So-
there's redeeming qualities to that. There's one kind of okay issue out of 6 in this,
Mhm.
and that issue is more important than it is good.
Right. Yeah. Just setting some foundations, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. What do you want to do here?
Is it better or worse than God Loves Man Kills 2?
Oh, it's better than that, I think. Is it better or worse than X-Men Mangaverse?
I think Mangaverse is more interesting.
Wow.
I think I would rather read Mangaverse again if I'm looking at
All
this
right.
honestly. I mean, if you disagree, let me know. But
No, I'm fine with this. So there it goes.
there it goes. X Factor Volume 1, 1 through 6, is our new number 38 on the list. I'm sorry, Wheezy.
Whew.
She only did one issue,
She
so
was
she
not.
can't feel so
Yeah,
bad.
she did one issue. We're not offending her too much, I think. Here.
No. So next on our list, the next kind of era of X Factor comes in October of 1991 with X Factor number 71, written by Peter David with art by Larry Stroman. This is the government X Factor team.
Mm-hmm. Freedom Force Part 2.
Freedom Force Part 2. This is such a weird team. We're
Oh, yeah.
gonna be talking about
I love that.
first 5 issues here, but it's shocking just what the makeup of this team is.
That's part of why I think it's so charming, to be honest. I don't know how you feel about this, but I really like this, especially the first couple issues with Stroman. His art is so dynamic and fun. And, to me, I wish there was more of it because his run on this is pretty short.
Yeah, I like Stroman here a lot better than I do when he comes back to Peter David's X Factor Investigations a few years later, where I think coloring techniques of the present day did not match well with his art, because his art's a little cartoony, a lot fluid.
Yes.
It's
extremely dynamic. It's
yeah,
fun.
it's got a lot of interesting stuff to it. I mean, this is a team with Strong Guy, Polaris, Multiple Man, Havoc, Wolfsbane, and Quicksilver. And some of those names are big names now, like Multiple Man and Strong Guy we think of when we think of X-Men characters. But they were nothing. Strong Guy especially had less than 10 appearances. Had to be less than that. He was
just a cameo character that would appear in Dazzler and Lila Cheney side stories. So, not exactly core. I mean, essentially this team is mainly comprised of the Moira McTaggart rejects and, the leftovers from Extinction Agenda.
Yeah.
Like that's who we've got here. And then Quicksilver is here for some reason.
Quicksilver is such a jerk in these issues too. Like they push his unlikable qualities up very high. It's weird. Like I said this on Twitter when I was reading these. I don't know how I feel about this. There's a lot of interesting stuff, but it feels like the
Mhm.
only character that David really has a good grasp on is Strong Guy, who is the star of these 5 issues. Like
Oh
this is
yeah.
a Strong Guy arc with a team around it.
Well, I will also give him some points because what he sets up here, especially in the first couple issues with Jamie, and the complexity that really has not been addressed at this point in that character's life of what it means to have multiple men, that then results in a callback to fallen angels is pretty spectacular. And it is basically what, we'll talk about X Factor investigations, but that aspect of the story, it all gets its core from right here, and building off of that.
Right.
So I think he does a really good job with that.
Yeah, I think this gets interesting. I do think the overarching plot of this, which involves Sinister and the Nasty Boys, who have 2 interesting members.
Oh, the Nasty Boys. I was thinking about
It's
that.
Gorgeous George and Ruckus, right? Like they're the only ones that anyone cares about.
Yep. And Beef, I think, is
Flab.
another one,
No,
right?
Beef was one of the late Hellions.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm
You're
sorry.
thinking
I'm
of
getting it mixed up.
Slab,
So what's
who Strong Guy
Slab?
punches
Thank you.
into the punches into and through the Washington Monument.
Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, this is the era of Dark Riders. This is the era of Mutant Liberation Front. So, the idea of the corny, dozen random villains with random names that are just like, 2 words squished together. that's where we're at. And I feel like there's a certain tongue-in-cheek quality to the Nasty Boys, that he's playing around with that premise too, because in the background of this is also a running gag that goes through his run about Dr. Chalker, who then, when he finally goes to attack, there's it's a running gag that goes through the thing where every time he plots to kill X Factor, he ends up killing himself. And that gets planted back here in the beginning too. So you can tell the wheels are spinning. And I know you want to talk about Kermit the Frog.
Oh yeah! Right? Okay. Yeah. This is the good part of Peter David. So, working with the Nasty Boys is a dupe of Jamie Madrox, who claims to be the real dupe, and they spend a good part of an issue running through a couple of different branches of the Smithsonian and fighting each other. And then at one point, one of the dupes hides behind a Kermit the Frog puppet and starts talking to the other dupe, and then just punches the other dupe with the Kermit the Frog puppet, and it's kind of fabulous. Like, this is... Peter David is so hot and cold for me. This is a Peter David goof that really lands well.
Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoy reading these. I think that I do wish that Stroman had stuck around. I think he, tried to jump over to Image. He did a couple of, and very few issues of his creator-owned series Tribe. But, visuals, I love his Sinister. I love the way he draws action and some of the dynamics there. And then I think this series hits its stride when Casada jumps on. But still, all of the core seeds are here for where this is going to go.
There's a lot of
fun.
good, and knowing the time it came out, I can see this being a very refreshing book compared to the Jim Lee and Will Portacio X-Men and the Liefeld X Factor or X-Force. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, there was no humor in those whatsoever. So the fact that this has a sensibility about it that is going to be more character based and is going to be silly in a lot of respects is a real big shift from what you're seeing elsewhere in the X line at this time.
No, it's a very interesting story. I don't think it's great. I think it's very solid. That's where I would be on it. Now, where do you kind of see it compared to some of the other X-Men stories that we've talked about?
Well, I mean, I enjoy this quite a bit, and I think that I would revisit this. I like the art. I like the fresh start. I like the fact that David is going with sort of this misfit team. which we'll see another misfit team in a second. But I think this has potential to do okay
Yeah.
here. But I know that it's not the series at its strongest quite yet, so I'm kind of looking in the middle of the list here.
I know it's not
So
as good as
we're
issue 87, which we have already covered on this list, Examinations.
no, I certainly wasn't going that high. I was looking down around Exterminators, Battle of the Atom.
That's interesting.
Or
That's an
yeah,
interesting spot.
were you going to
I
go
don't know
higher
where I
than
was
that?
going to go with that. I was
Hmm.
still trying to figure out, but I kind of like that. I'll say I do think Inferno is probably a better story than this.
Okay. Yeah,
I,
I'll
I
jump on
think
that. There's cool stuff happening here, but Inferno is this like massive
yeah,
crossover thing.
I think it's better than Battle of the Atom though, because Battle of the Atom is flawed. It's good, but it's flawed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll leave it up to you. Is this better or worse
You
than
know I love
Exterminators?
Exterminators. You know you're
I know
doing
you
this to
do.
me.
That's
This
why
is
I'm gonna
rough.
leave this. I'm gonna let you
So
you figure that
there's
out.
on one hand you got Artie and Leech and Exterminators being just adorable. On the other hand, you get essentially 5 issues of strong guy at his cheekiest, at his best. Like I do absolutely adore the strong guy that's in this.
Yeah.
He's the most interesting character by far. And I think it's probably fair to put that as our new number 23. We'll split the Infernos.
There we go.
X Factor Volume 1, issues 71 through 75. The first arc of Peter David's X Factor with Sinister and the Nasty Boys. So,
Nice.
you know how Peter David wrote X Factor for a little bit? You know
Yeah,
how
quite a
then
bit.
he took like a 15-year break or 10-year break or something like
Yeah.
that, and then just started writing X Factor forever. Not the series X Factor
Uh-huh.
forever. That's different. But
No.
lowercase.
We'll get to the forever titles at
Eventually,
some point.
I've never read any of the. I've read the start of X-Men Forever, but I did not want to invest in a very long alternate universe of late Claremont stuff.
We should do an episode where we tackle some of
Oh,
those. They're weird. But we'll stay on task here. So the next iteration
well,
is
not true. This is actually Volume 3 of X Factor because Volume 2 was about a bunch of like some human cops in the mutant world, which I've never read. I
right.
really want to. It's
So this is volume 3,
it
but
gets
then
renumbered into the
renumbers itself
original
back to
numbering, but
volume
doesn't count the
1.
6 issues of X Factor
Ah,
Volume 2.
okay.
I already went on a
Competes
rant
little bit.
about how X-Men numbering can make perfect sense with something like Uncanny, and if they ever add anything that's not Uncanny X-Men to the Uncanny numbering, I will just freaking scream. But Adjectiveless X-Men is just a bizarre mess where it's only on 300 issues right now, but you can make a good
Uh-huh.
argument that should be somewhere around 470.
Oh,
I
wow. You've given
Yes,
this some thought.
you can go through my Twitter history. I just put a link up about it. But no, this is X Factor Volume 3, 1 through 6. The trade is titled The Longest Night. It is written by Peter David with pencils by Ryan Sook and Dennis Calero. This is right after Decimation, or during Decimation. This is right after House of M. So many mutants have lost their powers, including Julio Esteban Richter. And he's in Mutant Town and he wants to kill himself. And
Ah.
Jamie Madrox
Ah.
and his new X Factor investigations are trying to talk him down. And it kind of just goes on from there.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good point. The pacing on this has almost a TV show
Yes.
quality to it. He leans very hard into the TV trope of one person's disconnected sentence then leads into another person's either thought or dialogue on the next page. There's quite a bit of that, and it works really well. I really like Ryan's artwork throughout this. I just noticed that Stuart Immonen's inker Wade von Grawbadger is doing inks on some of this, and
It's
there's a real nice quality of like street level
Yeah.
to this that works very well,
Because it's about what happens to the mutant ghetto when no one's a mutant. What happens
Right.
to a subculture when the one thing you had connecting yourselves disappears, and 6 of you still have it, and you have to find a way to keep it going. I mean, this is a cool team. It keeps Wolfsbane, Strong Guy, and Jamie Madrox, the Multiple Man, from the last X Factor run we talked about, but adds Richter, Siren, and Monet M. And it's super, like, that's such a good team. David.
Well, it's a great lineup because, I mean, even just these first couple issues, everyone is so, like, curt with each other. Everybody's, like, snippy and quippy, and, there's a lot of arguing. But yet, they work very, very well to get things done, even if it means pushing Richter off a ledge.
That was a dupe. To be clear, it was a rogue dupe. Jamie had very little to do with it. But no, one of my favorite things about this is just how good the character interactions are in this story. How well everyone can play off each other. It's fantastic because a lot of these characters have history together. You have Jamie and Siren have been together on Fallen Angels. You have Richter and Wolfsbane who've had a relationship in the past. You have Jamie and Strong Guy who have been best friends forever. You have Monet who's never found someone she thought was okay. It's great. And,
Monet is great here. I love Monet in this. And then, of course, you throw into the mix the character who knows stuff.
Layla Miller?
Yes, Layla Miller shows up knowing things and killing people. And,
I'll tell you, the end of issue 3, there is an assassin that's coming to, get rid of X Factor from a company they've been investigating. And Layla meets him in the kitchen. She's just standing there, and she's just very casually talking to him, saying, "Hey, this isn't going to go well for you. I know that this is not going to be great. You're going to die." And you see that before him, she had undone a couple of bolts and put this guy exactly in the right position so that he was going to get a bunch of water dumped on him and then electrocuted to death. And it's just terrifying picture of, I'm Layla Miller. I know stuff.
And I want to point out, I mean, this is what's great about that is that, like, there's a good almost 13 pages in between when Monet has a side conversation with Layla about a broken handle on a faucet and then the payoff of the electrocution of the bad guy. Like, there's a real gap there, and it's, there's very smart writing happening here throughout. There's this background story of a riot happening in the streets of Mutant Town. There's another storyline that involves this organization called the Singularity. There's an abduction that happens with Siren, and all of it just flows from one thing to the next very, very naturally. It's good.
Like, there's a reason why anytime someone brings up they should do an X-Men based TV show, this run of X Factor is one of the first things people say, because it's very serialized. It relies heavily on character drama, not mutant antics. And it's just a lot of fun. This is David writing like the best he can. This is something that I absolutely adore, the early parts of this. This run goes on for a very long time. Like, this run goes through 270 some issues.
And then becomes all new X Factor.
Yeah, after
point, doesn't it?
271 or something like that. I forget the exact issue where it changes over. They do all new X Factor for about 20 issues that doesn't hit this height at all. Like, this is if not my favorite Peter David X Factor stuff, it's up there. Especially this first like 50 issues of this run, I adore those. They are great, real page turners.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think what works really well for it is just what you mentioned is that, when people talk about making an X TV show, you can see this being a TV show because there are not a tremendous, I mean, aside from, Wolfsbane transforming or Siren flying, there's not like we're not heavy on big
Uh-uh.
set pieces here. This is ground level detective work, conversations, interactions with police and people, and it
Yeah,
works really,
so
really
much of
well.
this works just by people talking to each other, and I
Hmm.
think that is just fantastic.
Yeah, Sook does a really good job
Oh
with
yeah.
expressions. So, you get a lot of the character beats, not from necessarily the dialogue or, a thought box or whatever, but just the looks on people's faces are the punchlines to some of the jokes, and it
Yeah,
works
the
very,
only
very
thing I
well.
think Sook struggles with is Wolfsbane
Hmm.
in her transformed state. That always feels like, and maybe it has to do with some of the inking, but it feels like someone photoshopped a wolf's head onto a human body.
There are a couple of examples of that, and I'm also curious if maybe that's Calero versus Sook, depending on the issue. But you're right. There's some variations on what Rain looks like in wolf's form, and there's one page in particular where it actually looks like a dog. There are examples of that, but I honestly like it doesn't take me out of the story. It doesn't detract from the what's going on and what the interactions are. So I think we both enjoy this quite a bit.
I
Where
like it
would we
better
rank it?
than David's first arc of the government team.
I do too.
This is where it gets tough. I'm not sure if this. I don't think this is better than examinations. I don't know.
Okay. I think that might be a
I
good
think
place for
part
it
of it
then.
I like better,
Yeah.
part of it I don't. I know I'm not as hot
Mhm.
on examinations as a lot of people are, so that plays into it.
I think as a standalone issue, Examinations has that classic quality that a lot of people revisit, and they think of it as this standalone great issue of Peter David's work. And if you're going to pick one issue of Peter David comics to go back and look at, it's probably that one. So I think that's a good place to put it on the list.
Yeah,
Is
because
is
right
maybe
below that
below
we have
that.
Giant Size X-Men #1 at 16, Executioner Song at 17, Messiah
Mhm.
War at 18. I think this is better than all of them. But right
Yeah,
above that, we've
I
got
agree.
X-Men
So
92, The World is a Vampire, and then What If Wolverine was Lord of the Vampires. I kind of think I like those better. So I think that the new number 16 is probably a really good spot for this.
perfect.
We
We
did it.
found it. Figured it
We
out.
solved our list puzzle. So that wraps it up. We now have 42 items on this list, which you can go on XavierFiles.com and see the list. I think there's actually a link if you just swipe over to the episode notes. You can get to the master list.
Nice.
I'm like 99% sure that's there. I'll probably make sure it's there while you're listening to this. It'll exist there.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
Like if it's not
I'm pretty
while
sure
I'm
you're right.
recording it, it will while you
I think
listen
I've
to
seen
it.
that.
We're going to wrap up the podcast now because I apparently have stopped saying words right. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to Charlie for supporting us on Patreon and suggesting X Factor Investigations 1 through 6. That kind of support, it allows this podcast to exist. It allows, everyday folks like me and Adam to spend a half hour talking about X-Men stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you can't donate monetarily, you can always leave us a rating or review, or just drop us a line on Twitter. I'm at Xavier Files, and I'd love to hear people's thoughts on the show. Beyond that, if you want to go to XavierFiles.com, I have weekly articles all about X-Men. I believe as I record this, and as you listen to it, I will have just finished a article on Taki the Whiz Kid from Exterminators. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. I haven't written it yet or even
Nice.
started research, but I only know of like 7 issues that he's in. So it's going to be an interesting one to write. I'm going to get to talk about Exterminators a lot, though, which, okay. If I haven't gotten a chance to talk about that book enough.
There you go.
Oh, now, Adam, if they want to find you online,
man.
see you talk about Exterminators at length, where can people do that?
Guys, you can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. And if you'd like to see drawings and illustrations, I'm at adamrec.tumblr.com.
I follow him on Tumblr. It's good for buds. Beyond that, we have a special announcement for next week. You're going to want to tune in because we have the one, the only Dennis Hopeless, who's going to be he's going to be joining us on the show. We're going to talk to him about all of his new and exciting X-Men stuff. I'm really pumped about that. That wasn't something we planned out. I made a dumb joke about Air Bud to him once, and he was intrigued.
So we may just end up ranking the Air Bud movies. I mean, we may not talk about X-Men at all.
I mean, hold on. Is there? I've not seen the entire Air Bud cinematic universe, including the Air Buddies and the Santa Buddies franchises.
I don't think I've seen any of them, so you'd be ahead of me if you've seen some.
Adam, have you never seen an Air Bud?
No.
There's a dog who plays basketball, and then he plays football, and then like volleyball and soccer.
Yeah, I sort of missed that boat. We had Beethoven, and that was sort of a thing for a while.
Oh.
But, then, Air Bud came along, and
you have children. You have children at the Air Bud appropriate age.
You are very correct, but it has somehow escaped us. So I don't know. Maybe that just needs to be its own special.
We'll see. Everyone, this has been the Air Bud Hour. I'm your host, Zach Jenkins. Thanks for listening to Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!